Mario Kart World is certainly the most divisive Mario Kart game. From its mechanics, its more cartoony art style, and choices of playable characters, Nintendo really caused a stir in the fandom. One thing you can't argue, however, is that when it came to creating the tracks for this game, Nintendo surely went for quality over quantity. Sort of. Hey internet, I'm Bryse, and in this video, I'm going to be ranking every course in Mario Kart World as a non-competitive player. I just want to make sure that part's clear. Actually, that's a lie. I won't be ranking all the intermissions, which technically count as courses because I don't hate myself enough, as there's over like 200 in the game, and I don't have the attention span to be writing a script for that long. So yeah, I'm just doing the main 30 courses. I just want to remind you that this is just how I feel and is in no way official. So before you cuss me out in the comments for ranking your favorite track lower on my list, just remember, that's my opinion! After you watch the video, let me know your rankings in the comments below. Anyways, without further ado, let's go! Oh my god! As much as I enjoy Mario Kart World, it isn't a perfect game. So of course there's going to be a couple stinkers. And I bet this is no shocker, but coming in at number 30 is the biggest and stinkiest of all. It's Koopa Beach. I mean, it's just a boring circle. What did you expect? Of all the SNES tracks, why did they have to bring back Koopa Beach 2? I will say I do enjoy the visual glow up it got, and the party vibe is great. But due to it being an SNES track, it's going to be basic gameplay wise. I don't know why they couldn't have just combined Koopa Beach 1 and 2 like they did with SNES Mario Circuit in this game. Koopa Beach 1 is in the game. It's right next to this track in the free roam mode. Why didn't you do that, Nintendo?
That's suspicious.
At least combining them would have made the track a little more interesting. Or even if they could have just given it the Mario Kart Tour treatment. It made it more like one of the remix tracks in that game. It would have at least added somewhat more variety. Or even better, they could have just scrapped this track altogether and given us a retro track that hasn't been brought back multiple times. That would have been great, but at least it retained its 5 laps. So instead of only lasting for 30 seconds, it lasts for a whopping 1 minute. Wow! Bruh. Okay, now that we have that garbage out of the way, the D-tier tracks I don't think are horrible. They're either just boring or don't have as much substance as some of the higher placed tracks on this list. And coming in at number 29 is another retro track that's been brought back more than once. It's Desert Hills. The desert tracks in Mario Kart games have never been known to be some of the best types of tracks, as they're usually basic gameplay wise and bland in terms of aesthetics. And Desert Hills is one of those tracks. Originally, this track was based off of Desert Land from Super Mario Bros. 3, and it featured that godforsaken angry sun who would pelt you with fireballs as you raced, similar to how they did in Mario 3. However, this time around, the track no longer features elements from Mario Bros. 3, and now focuses on Super Mario Land, including the reappearance of Batadons, which I don't even know if that's actually how you pronounce it, so I'm just guessing here. Although that's a cool touch, the track's layout actually gets worse, as they nerfed the one thing that made this track somewhat fun, which are the giant winding hills at the end of the track. You know, the thing that Desert Hills are named after? Now it's just a couple of flattened turns with an optional glider ramp. The hills may be alive in Julie Andrews' world, but not here. They're dead. Oh, the potential you had. Completely wasted. At number 28 is Starview Peak, and I can confirm that this track is far from peak. When I first saw this track, I was so excited. Finally, a track revolving around racing through the Comet Observatory. And then I played it. Talk about a catfish. Starview Peak has very little going for it. The best way to describe this track is that if Rosalina's Ice World and Ice Ice Outpost had a baby. So yeah, talk about some bad genes. The two main features of this track are the green and yellow paths like Ice Ice Outpost, and the water section like Rosalina's Ice World. The branching path section did more harm than good for Ice Ice Outpost, and it does the same here. Just pick a path and either have a tighter turn or a few boost panels. The water section is a complete bore. It just goes on for way longer than it should, because there's nothing going on during this part of the track. Just a couple of boost rings and awkward water controls. The lack of obstacles on this track really hurts it, as it's just a whole lot of nothing happening the entire time. If they would have added some cheeps or something to have to avoid in the water section, I probably would have ranked this course higher, because at least it would have added something to this track instead of driving across a whole lot of nothing. Also, of all the NPC characters in this game, why isn't Luma a playable character? They appear in the background of this track. Would it really have been so difficult to add one more character? Oh. Do you notice a theme here? The tracks that have been brought back numerous times appearing so low on this list? Well, get used to it, because at number 27, it's Dirt Arena.
Wait a minute!
I mean Choco Mountain. This course received one of the biggest redesigns in Mario Kart history, now appearing as a monster truck arena rather than a mountain. I don't know what Nintendo was thinking with this one, if I'm being honest. It's not horrible, but it's lost a lot of its charm from the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe version, which I think was the best iteration. Now, maybe their thought process was because this track was already available to play on the Switch, let's reimagine this track so it's completely different and they stand out from one another. But if that's the case, why not just name this track Chargin' Chuck Arena or something like that to keep the Choco Mountain legacy intact? That being said, the track plays alright. I'm just not a huge fan of the theming and aesthetic here. I don't go out of my way to avoid this track, but I'm also not picking it if I have the choice. Okay, I'm gonna get this out of the way first. If this track is called Moo Moo Meadows, then why didn't they just name the character Moo Moo instead of just Cow? A swing and a miss, Nintendo. Anyways, at number 26 is Moo Moo Meadows, and wait, wasn't this track just brought back in Mario Kart 8? Why is it here again? You couldn't have just done Moo Moo Farm? Although that track is just a circle, and you know how I feel about circle tracks. But anyways, this track is fine. Nothing special, but it doesn't really do any harm. I honestly just have Moo Moo Meadows fatigue at this point, and that's really all I have to say about it. A lot of people think this track looks visually worse in this game than in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I honestly don't agree. Mario Kart World just uses a different art style, and I actually like the more cartoony look this game has. Number 25 is the game's starting track, Mario Bros. Circuit. Of all the circuit tracks in this game, this has to be one of the most visually different, and I'm here for it. It's a nod to Route 66. It reminds me of that awesome Cars video game from back in the day. Seriously, has anyone else played that game? I had so much fun just driving around that world. The purpose of this track is to get you familiar with the game's new mechanics, and I think it's successful at doing so. There are rails to grind, walls to ride on, and straightaways where you can use the new hopping strat. Now, because this is the first track in the game, it's going to lean on the easier side, and not really offer any hazards, obstacles, or tricky turns, but it's a fun little 3-lap drive. It does offer a few shortcuts, with one being right at the start of the track. However, you're going to need a mushroom or star to break through the tires to ride on the rail, or a feather to jump over them. Unless you're skilled enough to pull off a good hop, which I am not. I did not expect Mario Circuit to be this high on my list, but here we are at number 24. I know this is only C tier, and that's not really high, but that's pretty good for an SNES track. Or should I say 3 SNES tracks, because that's what we have here, being Mario Circuits 1, 2, and 3. Type F in comments for Mario Circuit 4. Maybe you'll get your chance to shine one day. Combining 3 different tracks here was genius. Take notes, Koopa Beach.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
The way this game handles it is that each lap is 1 lap of the 3 circuits. And while I do think this makes it unique enough to rank above Mario Bros. Circuit, the track overall is one of the shortest tracks in the game, on par with Koopa Beach. Plus, this track is pretty broken with mushrooms, as there are a ton of off-road shortcuts. Due to this, I can't rank the track any higher, but if the length of the mushroom issues were fixed, I could definitely see this track jump up a few spots in my ranking. I know some people hate the multicolored blocks that appear in most SNES tracks, but I kinda like them, and I'm glad they kept them for this remake.
Nice.
Starting off the B tier at number 23, we have Peach Beach. Or should I say Peach Resort, because this is another track that got a huge overhaul. Although Peach Beach had already been brought back in Mario Kart Wii, the track this time around is so different that I can't even dock it points for returning for a 3rd time, as the 3rd time was definitely a charm for this track. The track starts off as it normally does for the first lap. But for laps 2 and 3, there's a brand new route that takes place in the newly added resort, extending counterclockwise from the original starting line. Similarly to Calamari Desert and Peach Gardens from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Peach Beach changes its layout between laps, with racers instead driving through the castle on the island, and like Calamari Desert, the course combines both laps and sections, with one lap being a normal lap and laps 2 and 3 being sections. This really helps spice things up in what is normally a pretty basic and short track, although there are a few dull moments still with the straightaway sections and the uneventful water portions. Even with these dull spots, I do still think this is the best iteration of Peach Beach to date, and I'm so glad we got to see it reimagined for the new era of Mario Kart. Coming in at number 22 is Dandelion Depths. This course takes place around some sort of construction site that eventually takes you into a giant cave. The first half of this track doesn't really do much for me, as it doesn't really offer any fun gameplay, and it's just kind of a bunch of turns. It does sort of give off Steam Gardens vibes from Super Mario Odyssey, but to a lesser extent. I wish it would have played into it more. However, the cave section definitely carries this track. It's one of the most beautiful sections in the game with the lighting and the dandelions blowing about. It's a shame we weren't in the cave section for longer, or this track would be much higher. It's like you enter it just to immediately exit it a few seconds later. Driving directly up out of the cave with the speed boost is pretty cool though. This is the track I've played the most, and it's not because I love it, but because of trying to unlock stupid Swoop. I am so glad that they've added more ways to unlock those NPC characters in one of the recent updates. But why couldn't they have just made it easier from the beginning than locking them behind that stupid Kamek item?
Peaches and cream.
Crown City is definitely one of the standout areas in the game. Nintendo put a lot of energy into making this feel like a large bustling city, with all the cars, roadways, and the fact that this area is the only one in the free roam mode that has 10 stamp blocks instead of 5. But Crown City in its normal race form sadly misses the mark, which is why it's at the number 21 spot. It kind of has the opposite problem that Dandelion Depths had, where this track starts off pretty strong, but then ends pretty weak. Crown City plays as a section track, and laps 1 and 2 are pretty solid. Standouts from the first 2 laps are the skate park and the rooftop sections, but lap 3 is kind of just road, and that's about it. There's nothing that makes it stand out or interesting from the other 2 laps. Lap 3 honestly just reminds me of one of the Tour City tracks, which is not a good thing to be compared to. Sure, some of the city tracks were alright, but that's just it. Just alright. Nothing great. I think if lap 3 consisted of driving across that giant bridge that gets utilized in the intermissions and knockout rallies, that may have boosted it in the ranking. The bridge at least offers the challenge of dodging an array of vehicles, with options to ride on the road itself or rail grind above it, instead of just boring road. I will say that Crown City is one of my favorite areas to explore in the free roam mode, due to its sheer size, but as a race course, it just falls flat of standing out above the others above it. If you would have asked me to rank the tracks around the launch date, I never would have thought Peach Stadium would be in B tier, but here it is at number 20. Peach Stadium is a watered-down version of the typical stadium tracks we see, like Waluigi Stadium, or a certain other stadium we just may be seeing later on this list. Just saying. But that doesn't mean Peach Stadium is bad by any means. The entire track takes place on and around Peach's castle. The track starts off okay, with a few twists and turns, but it gets much more interesting around the halfway point, when rail grinding paths open up and offer different paths to take, with one offering the ability to jump to another rail grind spot and take a sharp turn shortcut. Pipes do serve as obstacles, but I did expect a bit more when it came to a stadium track, as it almost plays more like an upscale circuit track, which is why I'm placing it here in the rankings. Oh, and if I was ranking the Shell Cup version of this track would undoubtedly be the lowest ranked track not only in the game, but in Mario Kart history, as it's just one lap of a stupid rectangle. Like, WTF were you thinking, Nintendo? Although the rectangle does make a good battle track, I'm not gonna lie.
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you?
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. At number 19 is my favorite track from Mario Kart 7, it's Wario's Shipyard. This track plays drastically different due to the removal of underwater driving, and that really hurts this track. It was a big part of the original version, so not having it here just makes the track feel off. Due to this, the blowing pipe section has been removed, along with the swimming fish bones and the tunnel section. Plus, the removal of the majority of the Wario theming is confusing because this track is called Wario Shipyard, and now it doesn't really feel like a track that belongs to Wario. The track mainly sticks to water racing, and due to Mario Kart World's awkward water controls, this track just doesn't play as well as it used to, which makes it fall significantly from the top spots. There are a few opportunities for tricks with the rippling waves, but I don't know what it is with these, but sometimes even when you clearly do a trick off of one of them, the game just doesn't register it. Seriously, Nintendo, that's one thing you really need to fix with these water tracks. Set within a large savanna with animals such as elephants, zebras, and giraffes, we have number 18, Faraway Oasis. This is one of those middle difficulty tracks that are meant to test some of the skills that you've learned from previous earlier tracks, while not exactly amping up the difficulty curve much. It has some fun and easy to pull off shortcut sections, like rail grinding, then tricking onto the upper path during the tunnel section, but other than that, it's a pretty straightforward drive through this beautiful track. I'm a little disappointed because I was just expecting a little more with this track, which I guess isn't really fair when ranking it. Like, instead of having the animals watching from the sidelines, it would have been fun to have them running along the track as obstacles. Similarly to how they act during the intermissions to and from this course. I think this is one of the rare cases where I may actually enjoy some of the intermission versions slightly due to this feature, but Faraway Oasis is still a good middle of the road track. DK Spaceport has to be one of the most creative ideas for a racetrack. Whoever decided to turn the DK arcade game into a Mario Kart track deserves a raise. But if DK Spaceport is so creative, why is it only at the number 17 spot? Well, it's because of that very reason. I love how each section offers a different challenge from the last, such as avoiding falling barrels, jumping between rail grinds, wall riding, and ending with a showdown with a gigantic robot Donkey Kong. But due to it playing homage to the arcade game, it's just driving across straight structures with set obstacles, and then U-turning to the next. So layout-wise, it's very repetitive. And I'm not complaining about that. I do enjoy it, and I wouldn't want them to change anything about it. I like how it stays true to what the arcade game was. It just means it's going to rank a little lower for me than maybe some others would rank it. This track is absolute cinema. Kind of. Number 16, and ranking the highest of the B-tier tracks, is the spooky Boo Cinema. And let me just say, aesthetically, this track is elite. The whole movie theater theme is something we've never really seen before in Mario Kart. We've had ghost valleys and haunted mansions, but a haunted theater? That's new. And it feels fresh. From the moment you roll up to the entrance, it already feels different. The lighting, the marquee glow, the haunted Hollywood vibe, it has personality. It's dramatic, it's theatrical, and it's extra in the best way. But where this track really shines is when you enter the film itself. That section is genius. Suddenly, the world shifts into this sepia-tinted, old-timey movie aesthetic. You're not just racing on asphalt anymore. You're racing on film reel. Literal strips of film twisting and turning beneath your wheels. It's such a creative concept, and that's why I love it. Now, gameplay-wise, this is where it lands at the B tier instead of higher. The layout is pretty straightforward. It's not overly technical. There aren't a ton of crazy alternative routes or super demanding turns. It's accessible, which isn't a bad thing. But it does mean it doesn't have the same mechanical depth as some of the other tracks above it. It's more about atmosphere than challenge. And honestly, that's fine. Because if we were ranking purely on vibes, aesthetic, and creativity, Boo Cinema would be S tier without hesitation. It's stylish, it's memorable, and that film reel section alone makes it stand out from any other track in the game. It might not be the hardest track, but it absolutely steals the show. We are officially halfway through the track ranking, and we are already at A tier. That should tell you something about the quality of the tracks in this game. Starting off A tier at number 15 is a track that has grown on me over time. It's Cheep Cheep Falls. Once again visually, this track is stunning. The waterfalls, cliffside paths, and the vibrant colors make it one of the most appealing environments in the entire game. There's a great sense of scale. and the constant movement of the water gives the course a dynamic, energetic feel. From a gameplay perspective, it offers a solid challenge. The turns require precision, and the elevation changes keep you engaged throughout the laps. It's never dull, and it rewards clean driving. However, part of the difficulty comes from Mario Kart World's water driving controls. The handling in water can feel slightly awkward compared to standard driving. Steering and drifting don't always respond as sharply, which could make certain sections feel less controlled than they should. While this isn't a deal breaker, it does hold the track back from ranking higher. That said, Cheep Cheep Falls handles its water sections better than Wario Shipyard, as that track just wasn't built for Mario Kart World's water controls. There's less time spent on the water, which prevents the mechanic from overstaying its welcome. The pacing remains strong because the track balances water driving with more traditional sections, especially with shortcut potential that can skip portions of water driving. The other major factor here is the large mushroom shortcut near the end of the lap. It saves a significant amount of time, and while it's satisfying to pull off, it can heavily swing the outcome of a race. If one racer has a mushroom and another doesn't, the time difference can feel dramatic. That level of item dependency can be frustrating in close races. Despite these drawbacks, Cheep Cheep Falls remains a strong A-tier track. It's a beautiful, engaging track that just falls short of the very top due to mechanical limitations. And just above Cheep Cheep Falls, we have what I consider its sibling track due to it being another mainly water track, Salty Salty Speedway. Ranked at number 14, this course takes place in a seaside town that gives off a strong Venice-inspired atmosphere. The canals, architecture, and waterfront scenery give it a distinct identity, and it feels like a nice nod to the Mario Bros. Italian heritage. The mix of water routes and narrow streets creates a lively environment, and the overall theme gives it a relaxed but energetic feel. Like Cheep Cheep Falls though, this is primarily a water-based track, which is what keeps it from ranking higher. What elevates Salty Salty Speedway above the other water-heavy tracks is the amount of choice it gives the player. There are several alternate paths that let you avoid extended water driving if you want to. Near the end of the course, for example, you can wall ride up the sides and onto the rooftops, which then transitions into a glider ramp. These options add variety and allow even casual players to optimize their routes. The track offers opportunities for advanced movement and efficient lines, giving experienced players ways to gain real advantages. Which of course I am not good enough to pull off, nor do I want to spend hours of my life trying to learn them. I mean, come on, I do have a life here. Okay, I don't, but still. The important thing is that the options are there, and they add replay value to the track. Overall, Salty Salty Speedway is a strong course with a memorable setting, solid route variety, and enough technical depth to keep things interesting. Its reliance on water driving keeps it from climbing higher up in the rankings, but among the water-focused tracks, it stands out as one of the better ones. It's about time this track returned! Toad's Factory makes its comeback in Mario Kart World, and it's still just as solid as ever, getting the number 13 spot. This track remains fairly faithful to its original Wii fan favorite version. The core layout and identity are intact, and it still delivers that signature mix of moving machinery, shifting hazards, and fast-paced racing that made it memorable in the first place. There are a few notable updates, however. New upper routes are now accessible through rail grinding, adding more verticality and giving players additional options to optimize their lines. Other changes are smaller, but still noticeable. The pool of water has been replaced with off-road mud, and the ending dash panel has been swapped out for a small ramp. These tweaks modernize the course without fundamentally changing what made it work. And honestly, that's the key point here. This course was already strong and didn't need major improvements. The redesign feels respectful rather than experimental, keeping the focus on what fans already loved while integrating Mario Kart World's new mechanics where they fit naturally. The reason it doesn't rank even higher isn't because of any major flaws. It's simply a reflection of how strong the overall track selection is in Mario Kart World. With so many standout courses competing for the top spots, even a classic as reliable as Toad's Factory lands firmly in A tier. Coming in at number 12 is Sky High Sundae. Wait, what? Sky High Sundae? The same Sky High Sundae from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that was one of the worst tracks in that game? Yes, that's Sky High Sundae. After playing this version of the track, you can tell it was made with Mario Kart World's mechanics in mind, and was only added to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as sort of a teaser of what was to come. And I guess Mario Kart Tour as well, but we don't talk about that game. Sure, this track is just a glorified oval. But unlike similar tracks with this type of layout, Sky High Sundae has so many rails and walls to ride on that it never feels dull. Although the track stays pretty faithful to the original, with a few tweaks and an additional path during the split section, it's a track that stands out with its fun gameplay and sweet theming. Plus, I actually know how to do one of the wall strats near the end of this track, so that helps boost my opinion of this track. Coming in at number 11 is Dino Dino Jungle. I've always been a fan of this track, and this is easily the best it's ever been. From the moment the race starts, it feels more alive than ever. There are more dinosaurs throughout the course, and they actively serve as obstacles. You have to pay attention to their movement, especially in tighter sections where a small mistake can cost you. And then there's lap 3, which has a dinosaur actually chase you down. That adds a level of intensity that wasn't there before. It gives the final lap a sense of escalation. It makes the finish feel more dramatic. It's a simple addition, but it makes a big difference in how the race builds. The integration of Mario Kart World's mechanics also enhances this track. Some of the dinosaurs can be rail grinded off of, which makes the environment feel more interactive rather than static, and it rewards players who take advantage of those opportunities. One of the more noticeable changes is the cave section, which has now been transformed into the Dino Dino Laboratory. It feels like a very intentional reference to Jurassic Park, and it gives that section a fresh identity while still fitting the theme. It's a creative reimagining that makes this track feel updated rather than simply remade. Overall, Dino Dino Jungle feels more dynamic, more interactive, and more intense than ever before. It builds well across all 3 laps, makes great use of the new mechanics, and stays true to what made the original so memorable. Side note, but the battle track version of Dino Dino Jungle is my favorite of the battle tracks. It's the perfect size, and the layout works great with the dinosaurs you're able to trick off of. Just cracking the top 10 is this game's new rendition of Rainbow Road, which is the track that seems to have the fanbase split the most. Visually, this is the most beautiful Rainbow Road we've ever had. The scale, the lighting, and the way the course flows through space makes it feel truly grand. Every section is packed with color and spectacle, and it captures that sense of wonder that Rainbow Road is supposed to represent. From an aesthetic standpoint, it's outstanding. The track feels cinematic, and there are moments where you almost want to stop racing just to take in the surroundings. It delivers on the iconic atmosphere that players expect from a Rainbow Road. And in many ways, it sets a new benchmark visually for the series. However, the biggest issue with this version is its length. The track simply goes on for too long. While there are standout moments and visually striking set pieces, some sections start to blend together and feel less memorable as the race continues. Instead of building momentum, there are stretches where the pacing slows down and the excitement levels dip. Because of that, the overall experience feels slightly diluted. The strongest parts of the course are excellent, but they're separated by segments that don't leave much of an impression. If the track was shortened by around 25 to 30%, I believe the pacing would have been much tighter and more focused. It would have kept the spectacle while cutting out the sections that drag, resulting in a more consistently engaging race. Even with that criticism, this is still an impressive Rainbow Road. It's visually stunning and filled with moments that remind you why these tracks are always such a major part of each Mario Kart game. It just falls short of being a top-tier track because its length holds it back from reaching its full potential. It's time for another classic fan favorite. Airship Fortress lands at the number 9 spot, and like Toad's Factory, it doesn't change too drastically from its original version. When a track is this iconic, there isn't much that needs to be changed beyond updating the visuals and making small adjustments to fit modern mechanics. Mario Kart World understands that, and the result feels more like a respectful upgrade rather than a full redesign. The course layout remains largely intact, preserving everything that made the original so memorable. The narrow pathways, the looming airship, and the constant sense of tension as you navigate through bullet bills and other hazards. The atmosphere is still one of the track's strongest elements, and the updated visuals elevate that even further. The lighting, scale, and detail make the airship feel larger and more alive than ever. Rail grinding opportunities have been added throughout the track, allowing you to access areas that were unavailable in previous iterations, giving players more ways to maintain speed and opening up subtle route optimizations. These changes help modernize the experience without disrupting the core identity of the course. Because of those visual upgrades and the integration of Mario Kart World's mechanics, this feels like the definitive version of Airship Fortress. It respects the original while refining it just enough to keep it fresh. Number 8 is Acorn Heights, and it immediately reminds me of Wild Woods from Mario Kart 8. The entire course takes place around a giant tree, creating a setting that feels both imaginative and lived in. You race through a small village built among the treetops, across leaf platforms, and over small rivers winding through the tree's massive roots. Visually, it's a very inviting track. The environment feels dense and full of detail, and the layered layout gives the course a strong sense of verticality. It's the kind of track where the setting itself adds to the enjoyment of the race. The highlight for me is the middle section, where the course opens up and gives you multiple ways to move forward. You can trick off leaves, bounce across mushrooms, rail grind along the stems, or stick to the ground path. That variety makes every lap feel a little different, and allows players to choose routes based on their comfort level at that moment in the race. The ending section also stands out, with giant acorns rolling towards you while the road splits into multiple paths. It adds a bit of pressure right at the finish, without feeling unfair, and it keeps the momentum high throughout the final stretch. Acorn Heights is just one of those tracks that feels satisfying to race on. The flow is smooth, and the route options are engaging. I wanted to rank this course at number 1 so badly due to it being responsible for Wario's stupid Wicked Wasp costume, but I'm painfully refraining myself from that. At number 7 is DK Pass, and oh boy is this a fun track. Now I've always been a fan of this track, but a lot of people seem to hate on it in Mario Kart DS and 7, but here they praise it. I just wanted to specify that I've always loved it, so you don't think I'm just being a sheep and ranking this track high in this game because others suddenly love it. DK Pass is pretty unchanged layout-wise from its previous installments, so why is it loved now? Wall riding, that's why. With some crazy tech, this track offers some bonkers shortcuts that can almost guarantee you first place. But of course, I'm a noob, so I don't know how to do them. But I don't care, it's still a fun time. I like the tweaking they did with the track's theming to make it resemble DK Summit more, with the skiing and snowboarding Shy Guys. And that's about it. I just think it plays really well. And that's what makes great Mario Kart tracks.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique.
Landing at number 6, and the first track in the coveted S tier is Bowser's Castle. The Bowser's Castle tracks have always been some of the most intense and visually striking tracks in the series. But what makes this version stand out from previous iterations is how it evolves from the classic formula. This track mixes the usual lava theming with a strong industrial vibe. The result feels fresh while still unmistakably Bowser. The layout itself is fast and dynamic. It opens with a straightaway that quickly drops you into the action, followed by an early split path that gives players immediate route choices, where you have the option to race inside the castle or above it. From there, the course becomes increasingly aggressive, weaving through steeply angled sections as you climb higher into the castle. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the infamous Bowser Castle shortcut that everyone knows about and is required to pull off if you even want a shot at victory when racing online. As I get older, I feel like my gaming skills are decreasing, because in what should be a fairly easy shortcut to pull off, I find myself messing it up about 50% of the time. And the only guarantee I have at it is when I have a feather. Midway through the track, a glide ramp launches you through a lava-filled tunnel, before dropping you into a wide, high-speed curve surrounded by molten hazards. I don't know what effect is used here to make it seem like you're driving faster than what you really are, but I absolutely love it. It adds to the intensity of an already intense track. The final stretch continues to escalate the pressure, as you glide through a split U-turn pathway, trying to avoid falling lava rocks. One thing I really appreciate here is that Nintendo finally moved away from the mechanical Bowser obstacle that had appeared in every home console Bowser's Castle since Double Dash. It had become so tired over the years. Shy Guy Bazaar was already an incredible track in Mario Kart 7, so how could one possibly make it better? How about adding a bunch of rails and walls to ride off of, creating numerous alternate pathways? Yeah, that'll do it. At number 5, we have Shy Guy Bazaar. And I have to say, as a Daisy stan, I absolutely love what they did with this track. Having Daisy's palace in the background is such a cool touch. Although you aren't able to drive through it in this course, you can in 2 of the intermission tracks coming from Wario Stadium and Airship Fortress. But I said we aren't ranking the intermissions, so I'm not taking that into account with my ranking here. But I did want to mention it. There's just so much to do on this track, and you can have multiple races where you never traverse it in the same way twice. It's that replayability that I love. Plus, this track has those cute elephants, so that alone made it a top 5 track. Although I guess with that logic, that means Faraway Oasis should be a top 5 track. Forget I said that. But the elephants are cute. Just missing out on a top 3 spot. At number 4 is Great Question Brawl. Oh my god, that's a tongue twister. Just missing out on a top 3 spot. At number 4 is Great Question Block Ruins. What a weird name for a track. Oh, the layout kind of looks like 2 question marks. Sort of. That's cool. The course begins with a long climb up a sloped road, leading into the interior of the massive question block structure, where stacks of gold blocks line the sides of the track. After launching off a ramp and exiting the ruins, the course shifts into a winding descent that quickly builds momentum. Players bounce off a bouncy cloud before reaching a split path, where you can either take a higher route across a series of platforms, or stick to a lower, flatter line. Both routes eventually merge, leading into another set of bouncy clouds, and a tight hairpin turn that transitions into a glide section. From there, racers soar through rings that provide speed boosts before landing near the finish line. What makes this track really stand out is how many route options it offers. At first glance of the map, the layout seems straightforward, but once you start racing, you realize how many branching paths and alternate lines there really are. It rewards experimentation and keeps each lap feeling slightly different. Because this track takes place high in the sky, there's always a sense of risk. One small mistake can send you falling off the edge. And with items and 23 other racers, some BS is always bound to happen to screw you up. That balance between open route choices and the danger of the environment keeps the experience engaging throughout. Mario Kart and train-themed tracks go together like getting blue shelled on a third lap. You know one's coming. And here taking the bronze medal, it's Whistle Stop Summit. This is the course whose primary goal it is to get you familiar with rail grinding and the potential that it has. From start to finish, you're practically rail grinding the entire time. The track constantly pushes you to jump between rails, shift onto side routes, and maintain momentum while navigating the mountain's massive train system. It feels like less of a traditional road course, and more like a continuous flow of movement and timing. The track takes place high on a giant mountain railway, with sweeping views and long stretches of rail that emphasize speed and elevation. The atmosphere sells the idea that you're racing on an active train route, rather than a contained circuit. One of the core mechanics is avoiding the moving train that passes through the course. Fortunately, the layout is wide enough where it never feels like it's overly punishing. The train creates tension and forces awareness, but it rarely feels unfair or overly difficult to avoid. What really makes Whistle Stop Summit stand out is its route variety. There are numerous split paths throughout the track that let you choose different lines depending on your confidence level and racing style. Some paths are safer and more direct, while others reward riskier movement and stronger rail control. This course also contains a major technical shortcut near the end, one that can save a significant amount of time when executed properly. It's the kind of shortcut that clearly rewards mastery and precision, and as you can probably tell by now, I'm not quite good enough to pull it off consistently myself. So feel free to laugh at me in the comments and lower my already low self-esteem. Overall, Whistle Stop Summit is a perfect example of how Mario Kart World uses new mechanics to transform track design. It's fast, technical, and consistently engaging, which is exactly why it earns the number 3 spot in my rankings. I genuinely don't think I've seen another track balance this many strong elements together in such a cohesive package. Taking the silver medal and just missing out on first place is Dry Bones Burnout, the best new track Mario Kart World has to offer. Starting off with the layout, it's absolutely excellent. This course is packed with branching paths and meaningful shortcuts that reward players who are willing to experiment. What makes it especially satisfying is the vertical layering. There are both upper and lower routes you can take, and they're smartly connected through rail grinding opportunities. It creates constant decision making and gives skilled players real room to optimize their lines. The theming is another major highlight. A Day of the Dead inspired track is not something I would have expected from Mario Kart, but it works incredibly well. The vibrant colors, festive atmosphere, and skeletal motifs give the course a strong identity, while still fitting naturally within the Mario universe. At the same time, it carries some of the intensity and environmental danger that fans loved from Grumble Volcano, which helps keep the stakes feeling high. I haven't been talking about the music in the game, but it deserves special mention here. It's clearly Latin-inspired and fits the track perfectly. The rhythm is energetic and memorable without being distracting, and it reinforces the theme in a way that elevates the entire experience. Overall, Drybones Burnout is an incredibly well-rounded course. The layout is strong, the theming is fresh, the music is memorable, and the mechanics all work together seamlessly. It's a standout example of how creative design and smart gameplay systems can come together to create something truly memorable. And finally, at number 1, the best track in Mario Kart World is... What? N64 Wario Stadium? Who could have ever imagined that Wario Stadium, one of the worst tracks in Mario Kart 64, would turn out to be one of the best tracks ever thanks to Mario Kart World's mechanics? And I'm not even exaggerating. This track is a completely different beast now. What used to be a long, kind of dull stadium with awkward jumps and way too much empty space has been transformed into one of the most mechanically rewarding tracks in the entire game. The biggest reason is the sheer number of routes. This track is an absolute playground for wall riding and rail grinding. Every lap can feel so different because you're constantly making decisions. Do you stick to the normal course, allowing yourself to get items? Or do you launch yourself onto a wall, chain a grind into a trick, then drop back down into the track to save time? It feels less like you're following a track and more like you're freestyling through a stunt arena. And that's what makes it so fun. Mario Kart World's movement system completely reinvents Wario Stadium. Instead of wide, empty stretches, the layout is tighter and more intentional. They shortened it, trimmed the fat, and removed all the dull sections that dragged in the N64 version. There's no more waiting around for something interesting to happen, because something interesting is always happening now. The pacing is perfect, and visually, this track looks incredible. It's loud, it's flashy, it's slightly unhinged, and it's exactly what a Wario Stadium track should feel like. It has that high-stakes, adrenaline-pumping vibe that makes you lean forward in your chair. And what really puts it at number 1 for me is that it rewards skill. If you take the time to master the wall routes and rail lines, you can absolutely fly through this course. And to master them doesn't take hours on end. As long as you have a basic skill set, pretty well anyone can pull it off. Even me! It feels satisfying in a way that the original never even came close to. Wario Stadium didn't just get a glow up, it got a complete redemption arc. And that's why Wario Stadium is my number 1 track in Mario Kart World. Do you agree with my rankings? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to hit that like button and smash that subscribe button. Your support to the channel is much appreciated and does not go unnoticed. Once again, I've been Bryse, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.